The rain had already begun when Beth Collins turned the ignition. Her bus hummed like a tired animal, ready for another day of gray. Seattle's streets glistened under the streetlights, slick and silent. Coffee steam rose from paper cups, fogging her windshield slightly. She pressed the pedal, the city moving like a slow-breathing machine. Every corner was predictable, every stop a faded memory on repeat. Passengers shuffled in and out without names, just faces of fatigue. A teenager snored in the back. A man spilled his coffee and cursed. Beth wiped the mirror with her sleeve, eyes dull as the pavement. The radio whispered old songs that used to mean something. She used to hum along. Now, she just listened, half alive, half absent. Her hands gripped the wheel like it was the last thing keeping her real. The city didn't look back. It never did. It just kept moving. Beth wondered if she had become part of the traffic itself, a signal stuck on yellow, never daring to turn green. At the end of her shift, she parked the bus in its quiet lane. The seats were empty, shadows long, the air smelling of rain. She walked the aisle, lost in thought, until something caught her eye. An envelope, white and small, rested on seat 14. 2 words, in neat handwriting: "Don't give up." Beth froze, her breath caught between disbelief and curiosity. She looked around, no one there, no sound except the rain. Her heart began to beat a little faster, though she didn't know why. Maybe it was a prank, or a mistake, or something more. Either way, it was the first surprise her route had given her in years. She slipped the note into her pocket, feeling its quiet weight. Outside, the traffic lights blinked in the fog, one after another. She stared at a green signal glowing in the distance, and for the first time in months, she didn't feel invisible. She just whispered to herself, "What does it mean?" The next morning, Beth drove the same route, same hour, same rain. But something inside her had shifted, a tiny spark of alertness. Her eyes kept flicking to seat 14, expecting something, and when the bus emptied halfway through her route, she saw it. Another envelope, resting exactly where the first had been. This one said, "You are seen." The words felt like they reached straight under her ribs. Beth's fingers trembled as she held the paper. Someone was watching her, but not with malice. It felt almost kind, intimate, like being remembered. She showed the note to her friend Emma at the depot. Emma laughed, sipping coffee. "Maybe someone's flirting with you." Beth rolled her eyes but smiled, an expression she hadn't used in weeks. The warmth of that smile lingered long after Emma walked away. For the first time, Beth felt like part of the world again. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed replaying the day, wondering who it could be. Her mind created faces, passengers, ghosts, maybe even fate. Seattle's rain tapped against the window like impatient fingers. Each drop whispered a question she couldn't answer. The next morning, she cleaned the bus mirror until it shone. Every reflection seemed clearer, sharper, more alive. She caught her own eyes staring back, tired, yes, but searching. The note was still in her pocket, folded with care, and deep inside, a thought she hadn't felt in years. Maybe she mattered. As she drove into the gray morning, she checked seat 14 again, empty, but full of possibility. She smiled softly at her own reflection in the mirror. Maybe this was nothing. Maybe it was everything. Either way, she wanted to find out. Beth began to watch everyone who boarded her bus. The man with the sketchbook, the old woman with lavender perfume, the teenage girl who never looked up from her phone. Each one seemed capable of leaving those words. Each one carried a mystery Beth couldn't stop chasing. The bus became her stage of silent suspects. She memorized habits, who smiled, who avoided her eyes. The search filled her mind, replacing the dull ache of routine. But at night, when the city slept, another ache took over, the ache of remembering who she used to be. She opened a dusty box from her closet. Photographs, letters, smiles. Her younger self looked back at her with sunlit eyes. Beth touched the edge of a picture, recognizing the spark she'd lost. Somewhere between marriage, motherhood, and miles of gray roads, she had disappeared behind everyone else's needs. The next day, she drove differently. Her greetings were warmer, her eyes softer, her voice alive again. She began to hear laughter from the back seats, small but real. Even the engine seemed to hum with lighter rhythm. The city, somehow, didn't look so cold anymore, but the mystery still pulsed beneath it all. Why her? Why now? What did these messages mean? Each stoplight felt like a question hanging in the fog, and each green signal whispered, "Keep going." Something or someone wanted her to wake up. That night, she sat by the window, coffee in hand. The reflection in the glass wasn't a ghost anymore. It was a woman beginning to return to herself, and though she couldn't explain it, she smiled. The search had already begun to heal her. On Tuesday, something new appeared, an envelope, but blue this time. Seat 14 again, as if fate had assigned it that number. Inside, the message was clear. Look outside when the light turns green. Beth felt her pulse quicken. This wasn't random anymore. It was a path, a conversation without a voice. That afternoon, she waited for the light at Pine and 3rd. Rain poured down, streaking her windshield in silver threads. She remembered the note, lifted her gaze, and saw her, an elderly woman on the sidewalk, smiling directly at her. Their eyes met just as the signal turned green. Beth blinked, startled, but the woman was gone in an instant. A car honked behind her, snapping her back to motion. Her heart raced as if she had witnessed something sacred. The moment was fleeting, but it clung to her soul. She couldn't stop smiling for the rest of the route. Later, at the depot, she told Emma about it. Emma just shook her head, amused. Maybe the city's flirting with you. Beth laughed, genuinely laughed until tears filled her eyes. It felt like years since she'd felt joy, that pure. She realized she had been asleep far longer than she thought. That night, she walked home without her umbrella. The rain soaked her hair, her clothes, her worries, but she didn't care. Everything looked washed and new. Maybe these messages weren't about mystery at all. Maybe they were about remembering how to see. She placed the blue note beside the others on her dresser. White, then blue, like a rhythm, a heartbeat. Each word had led her somewhere brighter. And though she didn't know where it was heading, she knew one thing for sure. She wanted to follow. The next morning, Beth woke before her alarm. Her kitchen smelled of coffee and possibility. She looked out the window. Gray sky, soft drizzle, ordinary beauty. But it no longer felt heavy. The city was breathing again, and maybe, so was she. On the bus, she greeted every passenger with warmth. She helped a mother fold a stroller, smiled at a nervous student. People began greeting her back, some even by name. The bus that once felt like a cage now felt like a moving heartbeat, and Beth was at its center, alive and listening. At one stop, a homeless man boarded quietly. He clutched a crumpled paper flower, fragile and damp. When he reached his stop, he placed it gently by her seat. "For you," he said, eyes kind and tired. Beth stared as he stepped into the rain. She placed the flower on her dashboard, beside the notes. Together, they looked like a small shrine of hope. Each bump in the road made the petals tremble slightly. Beth touched them once, lightly, and whispered, "Thank you." Her chest ached with something soft. Gratitude, maybe. That night, she dreamed of endless roads, of signals turning green and never red again, of laughter in the back seats, and a blue sky breaking through clouds. When she woke, tears stained her pillow, but she was smiling. The city outside glowed faintly awake, like her. And far away, in a drawer, the next envelope was waiting, its color unseen, its words unwritten, but it was already calling her name in silence. Beth didn't know it yet, but her story had just begun. And the light, the one she'd been waiting for, was about to turn green. The morning began with unease pressing against Beth's chest. Rumors had spread that the supervisor would ride along today. She wiped the dashboard twice, checked the mirrors thrice, heart quickening. Every move felt watched, every sound louder than usual. The bus roared to life under a sky of restless clouds. Passengers entered as always, familiar faces, soft smiles. Beth greeted them, masking her nerves with warmth. When the inspector finally climbed aboard, clipboard in hand, his silence was heavier than any scolding she imagined. She focused on the road, gripping the wheel like a prayer. Midway through the route, the engine coughed, a harsh metallic groan. The bus shuddered, slowing as panic rippled through her veins. She eased it to the curb, breath shallow, sweat on her palms. "Please, not now," she whispered, pressing the ignition again. The engine sputtered, then caught steady, alive again. The inspector's voice broke the tension. "You handled that well." Beth blinked, expecting reprimand but meeting a faint smile instead. "I've heard about you," he added. "Passengers mention your kindness." Those words struck deeper than she could have expected. Her throat tightened. For a moment, she couldn't respond. When he left, the world felt lighter, her reflection clearer in the mirror. Maybe change didn't arrive in grand gestures, but in small ones noticed. As she pulled into the depot, Emma waved from a distance. Beth waved back, her grin unguarded, her eyes bright. The city didn't seem so indifferent anymore. At home, she brewed tea and reread her notes, white, blue. Her heart pulsed in rhythm with those colors, a quiet symphony. Someone out there had seen her, believed she was worth noticing. She wasn't sure if she believed it yet, but she wanted to. Outside, rain tapped softly, like fingers applauding her courage. Before sleeping, she looked out the window toward the glowing streetlights. They flickered green, then red, then green again. Patient, alive, Beth whispered. Maybe the city's talking back. And for the first time, she hoped tomorrow would come quickly. Somewhere unseen, the next message was already waiting. It appeared on a quiet Thursday afternoon, seat 14, as always, but different this time. No color, no words, just an unmarked envelope, heavy with silence. Beth hesitated before opening it, pulse echoing in her ears. Inside was a single photograph. Old, it showed a bus her route, unmistakably, but 2 decades older. The seats looked the same, the city barely changed. She squinted, tracing the driver's silhouette through the glare. It wasn't her, but a woman smiling with calm certainty. Pinned to her jacket, a brooch just like Beth's. Beth brought the photo to Emma, who frowned and leaned closer. That's the old line, 27. Before your time, Emma said softly. They searched the company archives that evening, dusty and dim. A yellowed newspaper clipping caught Beth's eye. Headline star: Driver dies saving passengers in 2003 crash. The woman's name was Clara Jensen. Her smile in the photo seemed to reach through time itself. Beth felt a strange pull, like recognition without memory. A chill rippled through her spine, grief mixed with wonder. Could Clara be the unseen presence guiding her all along? That night, Beth couldn't rest. The photo lay beside her on the nightstand, glowing faintly in moonlight. She whispered to the air, "What are you trying to tell me?" Outside, a gust of wind rattled the window, like an answer. In her dream, the bus drove itself through endless green lights. Morning came, heavy with fog and questions. Beth slipped the photograph into her jacket pocket. Whatever this was, chance, spirit, destiny, it had chosen her. And she was done ignoring the signals. It was time to follow them, wherever they led. The garage smelled of diesel and history. Beth walked slowly between the parked buses, each one humming faintly. Her eyes landed on an old photograph wall, drivers through the decades, and there she was again, Clara Jensen, smiling, eternal, real. Beth's chest tightened, the resemblance undeniable. A mechanic passing by stopped and said, "You look just like her." He pointed at the brooch in the photo, the same silver wing Beth wore. "She was a legend here," he continued, "died saving others." Beth felt the words echo deep within her. Maybe this wasn't coincidence. Maybe it was connection. For days, she couldn't stop thinking about Clara. The routes they shared, the passengers they carried, the courage they'd lived. Each green light now felt like a bridge between 2 lives. Sometimes, Beth thought she heard footsteps behind her in the depot. When she turned, only shadows and the hum of engines remained. That evening, she parked the bus early and just sat in silence. Her hands rested on the steering wheel, trembling faintly. "Were you the one leaving the notes?" she whispered. The question hung in the air like a prayer unanswered. Rain began to fall again, soft and rhythmic, like breathing. A memory surfaced: her first day driving, nervous and lost. An older mechanic had handed her the brooch for luck. "She'd want you to have it," he'd said. Beth never asked who she was until now. Her heart ached at the realization. It had always been Clara's. Night fell, painting the city in trembling reflections. Beth walked home, clutching the brooch as if it pulsed with life. In every reflection, she saw Clara's smile overlapping hers. Their stories had somehow intertwined, across years and silence. And Beth knew she was being led towards something greater. She didn't know yet if she believed in ghosts or destiny. But she believed in meaning, in the quiet way the universe speaks. And tonight, it whispered through rain and headlights, "Keep driving, Beth. The road still has something to show you." She looked up. The traffic light above her had just turned green. The storm hit harder than anyone expected. Rain slammed against the bus like fists of glass. Wind howled through the narrow streets, bending streetlights sideways. Beth's wipers struggled, squealing helplessly across the windshield. Each flash of lightning revealed faces tense with fear. Halfway up the hill, the wiper snapped, one side dead, the other twitching. Her vision blurred, water streaking every direction. She slowed the bus, breath shallow, pulse quickening. Thunder cracked overhead, echoing through her bones. "Come on," she whispered. Not now. Then, a voice, soft, steady, from somewhere behind her. Trust the signal, it said, clear as daylight. Beth froze, eyes darting to the mirror. No one was there. Still, her hands obeyed before her mind could argue. She stopped the bus right before the next intersection. A car screamed past the red light a second later, fast, furious, unseen. It would have hit her full on. The passengers gasped, some crossing themselves, others silent. Beth's hands shook, her breath ragged with disbelief. The voice had saved them, or guided her. When the rain eased, she parked the bus and stepped outside. Cold air kissed her face. Her knees nearly gave out. The city steamed with rain, lights flickering like Morse code. She tilted her head upward, whispering, Clara. The wind answered, or maybe it was only her heart. Later that night, she replayed the security footage at the depot. Seat 14, empty the entire ride. Her throat closed, her eyes filled with tears she couldn't name. Emma found her there and touched her shoulder gently. Maybe it's not someone haunting you, she said. Maybe it's someone guiding you. Beth couldn't speak, only nodded. Her reflection shimmered in the dark glass of the monitor. She whispered, thank you, though she didn't know to whom. And as she stepped outside, the city lights ahead all turned green. The storm had passed, but something sacred had stayed behind. Morning came wrapped in fog, quiet as confession. Beth arrived early, drawn by questions that refused to rest. She played the footage again. No one sitting on seat 14, no movement, no trick of light, just emptiness that felt alive. Her heart whispered, there's more to see. Emma joined her with 2 coffees, eyes wide from curiosity. You know, she said softly, Clara used to drive this very line. Beth nodded, her fingers brushing the brooch unconsciously. Emma smiled. Then maybe she never really left. The words settled over them like a quiet blessing. That day, every passenger seemed different to Beth. The weary ones, the talkative ones, the lost, all glowing faintly. She began to wonder if everyone carried unseen signals of their own. Each thank you sounded like a heartbeat. Each green light felt like Clara's hand resting gently on hers. At one stop, an old woman boarded with trembling hands. She looked at Beth and said, you remind me of someone. Beth smiled. Maybe someone who used to drive this route. The woman blinked, almost startled. Yes, long ago. The bus rolled forward, and silence filled the space between them. That evening, Beth sat in the parked bus long after her shift. The empty seats glowed in the dim amber light. She imagined Clara sitting among them, peaceful, proud. Thank you, Beth whispered again, voice breaking softly. This time, she swore she felt warmth brush against her shoulder. The city outside pulsed with living color. Even the rain looked kind. Seat 14 gleamed faintly in the darkness. As if aware, Beth closed her eyes and smiled through tears. For the first time in years, she wasn't lonely, not truly. She just whispered, keep guiding me, Clara, I'm listening. And as the depot lights dimmed, a single traffic signal flickered outside, red to yellow, yellow to green. Beth watched it through the glass, her silent promise renewed. The road was still calling, still alive with meaning, and tomorrow, she would drive it again. The phone rang just as Beth was making tea. The voice on the other end made her freeze. Her daughter, Sarah. It had been months since they'd spoken beyond polite text messages. Mom, Sarah said, breath shaking. I'm not sure I should get married. The words carried fear, confusion, and something heartbreakingly familiar. Beth sank into the chair. Clutching the receiver with trembling fingers, she remembered her own hesitation years ago, the silence before decisions. Why do you think that? She asked softly, heart already aching. Sarah sighed. Because I'm scared. What if I'm doing everything wrong? Beth's eyes stung, the answer already forming on her tongue. Then wait for the green light, she said without thinking. The phrase slipped out gentle, sure, like it belonged to her. On the other end, silence stretched for a long moment. Then Sarah whispered, I knew you'd understand. And for the first time, their voices didn't sound so far apart. After the call, Beth sat in the dim kitchen, tears tracing her smile. The kettle hissed softly, steam curling toward the ceiling. She thought about all the signals she had ignored in her life. Maybe every red light was just a pause, not an ending. Maybe even waiting could be sacred. That night, she drove through the city with no destination. Streetlights shimmered against the wet pavement, dancing like ghosts. Each green flash felt like a heartbeat syncing with her own. She whispered, thank you, to the empty seat beside her. The word no longer meant loss, it meant love. When she parked, she noticed something tucked under the wiper blade. Another envelope, green, this time, deep and glowing in the streetlight. Her pulse quickened as she opened it with careful fingers. Inside, one line, "You followed the light." Beth exhaled, smiling through the tears. Clara was still with her. Beth volunteered for an early shift before sunrise, quiet and golden. The world looked half asleep, wrapped in fog and morning breath. Her hands steadied on the wheel, not from duty, but peace. As she turned the corner onto her usual route, something shimmered. Seat 14, another envelope, simple and white again. She opened it slowly, heart tender with knowing. Inside, just for words, "You kept going, Beth." Her breath hitched. This one felt like a goodbye. Outside, dawn broke softly over the sound, brushing the sky with pink. For a moment, everything, rain, glass, light, felt sacred. She parked the bus at the overlook where the city met the sea. No passengers, no engine hum, only waves and wind. Beth leaned against the window, tears streaming freely. Each message, each signal, each smile, it all led here. She wasn't being warned, she was being guided home. "Were you watching all along?" she whispered to the horizon. The rising sun flickered through the windshield, one long, golden beam. It struck the brooch on her jacket, making it gleam like fire. Beth smiled through tears, whispering, "Thank you, Clara." For once, her voice didn't echo, it harmonized. Later that day, Emma found her sitting by the parked bus. "You look different," she said, handing Beth a coffee. Beth nodded, her eyes distant but calm. "I feel different too." Emma tilted her head. "You gonna tell me what changed?" Beth smiled. "I just finally saw the light." That night, Beth walked home under a clear sky. No rain, no fog, only the quiet rhythm of her footsteps. She passed signal after signal, all glowing green. Each one felt like a heartbeat in time with her own. And for once, she didn't hurry through them, she simply followed. It was near the end of her route when he boarded an elderly man in a worn brown coat, eyes kind but heavy. He carried a small wooden box, holding it close like a secret. When the bus emptied, he walked to the front and smiled. "She wanted me to give you this," he said. Beth's heart stilled. "Who?" she asked, though she already knew. The man's eyes glistened. "Clara Jensen, my wife." He opened the box, revealing a silver brooch, polished, radiant. "The one from the accident," he said. "She always said it wasn't lost." Beth reached out, hands trembling as she touched it. Tears blurred her vision. "She's been here," Beth whispered. The man nodded, eyes shining with gentle certainty. She believed her story wasn't finished. "Maybe it continues through you." Beth couldn't speak, only reached for his hand. They sat together in the still bus, two lives crossing through grief and grace. When he left, she stayed behind, holding the brooch close. It felt warm, alive, pulsing softly in her palm. The city outside shimmered through tears that wouldn't stop falling. Beth fastened the pin to her jacket, a promise, not a memory. The seat behind her seemed to glow faintly in the dark. Later that night, she replayed every message in her mind. Each one had built a bridge between loss and purpose, fear and faith. Now she understood. The notes weren't sent to find someone else. They were sent so she could find herself. And the road ahead was finally cleared out at the depot. Emma waited by the doorway, smiling softly. Beth hugged her without a word, tears still wet on her face. "Long story," Beth whispered, laughing through it all. Emma grinned. "I've got time." The bus behind them blinked once, its signal, quietly green. The cemetery was silent, except for the wind brushing through trees. Beth walked slowly, the brooch gleaming against her jacket. In her hands, the paper flower, still fragile, still beautiful. She followed the path until she found the stone, Clara Jensen, 1965 to 2003. The name that had changed her life. She knelt, fingers trembling as she placed the flower down. "I think I finally understand," she whispered. "Every stop, every sign, you were teaching me how to move again." Tears slid down her cheeks, warm despite the cold air. "I'll keep driving, Clara, I promise." The breeze picked up, swirling leaves around her feet. Somewhere nearby, a traffic light clicked, faint but clear. Beth looked up in time to see it change from red to green. The sound was ordinary, but the meaning was not. It was an answer, a blessing. She stayed a while, just breathing, watching clouds drift apart. The city stretched in the distance, alive, forgiving, full of light. When she finally stood, she felt no weight, only release. Her heart no longer hurt from what was gone. It beat for everything still waiting ahead. Back on the bus, she touched the brooch before starting the engine. Its metal caught the sunlight and scattered it across the glass. The road ahead shimmered, familiar but new. Beth whispered, "Thank you for the ride." And the city, in its quiet language, whispered back. That evening, she drove home through soft, golden rain. Every window reflected green lights, one after another. They followed her like stars guiding a traveler home. For the first time in decades, Beth wasn't surviving. She was living, truly living. The last route of the week ended in silence. Beth parked the bus in its bay, engine sighing to rest. The depot lights dimmed one by one, leaving soft shadows. She lingered, fingertips brushing the wheel, heart calm. No notes, no voices, just the hum of life continuing. She reached into her pocket, feeling the edges of the last letter. "You followed the light." The words echoed like a lullaby. She smiled, folding it one final time and tucking it away. Then, from her jacket, she removed the brooch and pinned it proudly to her chest. Outside, Seattle's night pulsed in wet reflections. Car lights painted streaks of color on the asphalt. The city was alive, and so was she, awake, renewed. She watched a single intersection in the distance. Red, yellow, green, dot. Beth exhaled slowly, a laugh breaking through her breath. "Now I drive," she whispered to no one, to everyone. The signal ahead turned green, bright as dawn, and she stepped into the light, no longer waiting. The world moved, and she moved with it. The road stretched endlessly before her, wet and shining. No ghosts followed now, only grace, only gratitude. Every reflection on the glass looked like possibility. The rain began again, soft and kind, like a benediction. Beth Collins smiled, the signal green, the way clear. Sometimes the green light we need is the one we carry inside.